This is Jets FM on EOFN as we continue and conclude our preview of the New York Jets 2021 season, episode 10, Special Teams. And anytime we talk special teams with this franchise recently, we have to bring up the name Brandt Boyer first. A sixth season with the Jets, third different coaching staff. So he must be doing something right. And don't forget, you're talking about a former college football linebacker who was the team captain of the famed Arizona Wildcats Desert Swarm defense. So he's got some history of his own on the football field. Boyer has a new assistant this year, and that's going to be ex-Jet and right now considered the greatest kick returner all time for the New York Jets franchise, Leon Washington. Leon Washington has a record. It's tied, but he has a record. 8 kick return touchdowns. Josh Cribbs, and I grew up with Josh Cribbs. He also has that record, as does Cordarrelle Patterson, who's still playing. So any time now, any game now, that record could be broken with Cordarrelle Patterson. But Leon still got that at least tied record, and he's a 2-time All-Pro. And many Jet fans remember the greatness of Leon Washington, and it's nice to see that he is an assistant with Brandt Boyer here with the 2021 staff. And anytime we get talking about the special teams unit, you do have to start first, at least I believe, with the kicking game, place kicking. And it's good that we didn't do episode 1, special teams, because then I would have spent probably 30% of my time or 25% of my time talking about someone that's not here any longer. But Mr. Sam Ficken is gone. Just recently released. And that means that Chris Nagar, the rookie college free agent from SMU, has got a leg up on the number 1 place kicking job for 2021. Nagar was the AAC Special Teams Player of the Year last season when he connected on 17 of 21 kicks, including 2 clutch game-winning kicks that kept SMU undefeated at the time. A grad transfer from Texas, Nagar also doubled as a punter for 2 years between the Longhorns and the Mustangs. Boyer talked about his affinity for Nagar at a press conference prior to training camp.
Well, I really liked his interview when we interviewed him and spent 20, 30 minutes with him on Zoom meetings and stuff like that. And it's unfortunate that you can't get these guys and you can't see him kick in person. I really liked his rise on the ball that he has. He's got upper level leg strength. He's got very good rotation on the ball that he kicks. I think he was very productive. I think he was in the mid 80s or something percent wise. I think that it says a lot from, being a guy in Texas that was behind 2 scholarship guys that comes back and battles and doesn't quit and everything like that he transferred to SMU and comes out and wins the job and does a heck of a job in the year that he got the chance. I think that says a lot for a person.
The Jets signed former Oklahoma State Cowboy Matt Amendola to get a look at a kicker who compiled a ton of points for the program, but does not appear to be a true competition for the number 1 spot just yet. All right, so now let's take a quick look at my notes, because this is something that has just transpired recently, meaning Ficken gone, Amendola in. So now let's take a serious look at what's available out in free agency and what are the really interesting camp battles going on, because there are 3 in my mind, which means there's going to be 3 kickers available at some point. Could be tomorrow. It could be the week before the first game in the regular season, but there will be 3 kickers available that will lose a job and could very well win another job somewhere else. And it could be right here if Nagar is not the guy. Now, the 3 free agents are Stephen Gostkowski. We know who he is. We also know who we know who all 3 of them are. Gostkowski from the Patriots, Tennessee last year, Mike Nugent, the former Jet draft pick, and the former Giant kicker, Rosas. So Those guys I don't see as options just yet. And I only look at those guys as options if they start feeling that they got to bring someone in here to replace Nagar. I think those are guys. Just my opinion. I think those are the type of veterans you bring in late or sometime during the preseason if you start to question Nagar. Then you got to bring in an experienced guy in there just in case. Otherwise, I don't really see those guys as options just yet. Now, the camp battles I'm talking about, there are 3 of them. You have in Cincinnati, Austin Siebert is going to become available at some point. All right. And the reason is because the Bengals drafted Evan McPherson this year. They really like him. And you use up a 5th round draft pick on someone that you talk highly about. And so far has shown you exactly what you want to see. Chances are he's going to be your guy. So Austin Siebert then will wind up available. So Evan McPherson, the 5th round draft pick this year, probably wins that battle with Siebert. Siebert, who was the FBS all-time points leader when he came out at Oklahoma. It's interesting because we're talking about Amendola. Amendola's got a bunch of points, and that's what makes him look kind of interesting. But you look at percentage and accuracy and, and 50 yards plus, and I'm not seeing it. So, because you remember Big 12 football we're talking about, and if you're a kicker for 2 or 3 years, maybe 4 years at a Big 12 school, you're gonna come up with a lot of points, and that's what happened for Siebert and also for Amendola. But Siebert is having a good camp too. Now you're talking about a guy who was a 5th round pick by Cleveland, so they thought highly enough as well to use a 5th round pick on Siebert. Now he went 25 of 29 as a rookie for the Browns, but he missed 5 extra points. Then the following year, he comes in week 1, goes 0 for 1 on a field goal, misses his extra point attempt, and then that's it. Had enough. It kicked him to the curb. He did not find another job until week 14 with the Bengals, where he's at right now. And he actually looked really good at the end of last season. 6 of 8 field goals and made all 8 of his extra points. So he's got a nice rhythm going right now, Siebert. So keep an eye on Siebert if McPherson does indeed win that job. Then with the Colts, you have Blankenship. And I've talked before about Blankenship on several other programs. I am not a big Blankenship guy. Blankenship is one of these kickers that I guess if you keep him around long enough, maybe he'll finally come up with that big clutch kick you've been waiting for all your life. But this kid just, he's a good kicker. But then when it's time to win a game, come up with a good clutch kick, or just, hey, this is an important game. We really need you to do your job. He just fails more than he succeeds. And we saw that even as a rookie. Made a lot of kicks, looked good as a rookie. Then down the stretch, the playoffs, not as good. So Eddie Pinheiro was brought in to basically push him. That's it. They still want Blankenship. Blankenship, unless he completely folds, will be the kicker when the season begins. Pinheiro was looking for a place, and they figured, okay, let's bring him in here. We're going to push Blankenship, and we can give you an opportunity to kick, and then you'll find a job somewhere else. That's basically what's going to happen with Pinheiro, who's only 25. He was a starting kicker, if you don't recall, a couple years ago with the Bears. Remember when the Bears were having all those problems with kickers, including the playoff loss? Doink. Well, Pinheiro was with the Bears back in 2019, went 23 of 28, and he was actually supposed to be that steady, okay, he's not as bad as some of these younger guys, but and he also kicked a game-winning 53-yard field goal against Denver as time expired. So it wasn't a bad first year. But then he got injured, and that was it for Pinheiro. And it wasn't like he was 27 or 28. So there were still some questions about whether he was a full-time kicker. So once he got hurt, all right, we're looking for someone else. So now Pinheiro's back, and he will be, if he has a good preseason, he will be somebody to keep an eye on. And then the last one is Jose Bora Galas. Now, Bora Galas, a lot of people thought he was going to be the top kicker when the draft came around. And if there was going to be a kicker that was going to be drafted, this was going to be the guy. Kicked for Miami recently and was very good. Very good kicked in some, pretty decent games. Good kicker. Okay. He's competing with Ryan Sucko. Now, Sucko, who's just had one of these veteran careers, had his breakout year last year with the Bucks. You know how we always talk about Super Bowl champion teams and everything's got to go right. You got to get career years here, or championship teams in general. You got to get career years from people you didn't think you get career years from. They have to contribute. He has to contribute, and that's what happened with Ryan Sucko. He made just about every kick possible, including in the postseason. So it was a monster year. He re-signed in the offseason. And I was surprised that Bora Galas ended up as the kicker there, considering Suckup's there. But I look at it as maybe, look, here's a guy that wants a little bit of money. We're going to bring a young kid in here just in case and see how that works out. So they signed Sucko. And as long as Sucko looks like he's going to, and it's kind of hard to judge when it comes to veterans. Once you're a veteran and you're established in the regular season, preseasons, as long as you don't miss everything. But I just think it was just kind of interesting. I was kind of caught off guard, really, that Bora Galas picked Tampa Bay. But again, maybe there were some reasons there based on the contract and so forth. But Bora Galas will be available. The question is, were the Jets even interested themselves in Bora Galas? I don't know, because they were looking for kickers. They signed one, Nagar. Well, why didn't they sign Bora Galas? Maybe they preferred Nagar over Bora Galas. Maybe Bora Galas didn't want to kick with the Jets for whatever reason. I don't know. But will that be something to keep an eye on if something happens with Nagar? You would think at this point, because, again, unless the Jets wanted Bora Galas, he chose Tampa. Jets went with Nagar. If that scenario actually took place, then I could see the Jets waiting. If they're unsure and Bora Galas becomes available, okay, come here. I'm not so sure that happened, okay, but I'm just throwing it out there. All right, so those are the kickers. Those are the camp battles. Those are the free agents that are available. My gut feeling right now, though, is that Chris Nagar is going to end up as the place kicker for the Jets week 1. And we talked about this on some of the other shows. It's the same reason why the Jets haven't signed a veteran quarterback yet to back up Zach Wilson. It's the same reason why the Jets haven't yet to sign a veteran cornerback and are going into the regular season with a bunch of young corners with not a lot of experience in starts, games, etc. Talked about that on the last episode 9 with the secondary. We talked a little bit about that with episode 2 with the quarterbacks. So it's happening again, I think, here. I don't think they care at all about the no experience thing. This is not a Super Bowl championship team. It's not about that. It's about, hey, if this kid can show that he did it in college, he made some clutch kicks in college, and if he can make some, which will be clutch kicks for him in the preseason to make an NFL team, then we're going to go with him. And hopefully he'll be our guy. And of course, there's always going to be those 5 or 6 other guys you can turn to after that. But when you don't, if things don't work out once the regular season begins, but when you do not have the expectations and you're in year 1 of a coaching staff of winning a championship, what you're saying to yourself is, hey, or at least this is kind of how the conversation may be going between Sal and Boyer. Do you feel confident? Is this somebody that you think is worthy of a shot, an NFL shot? Yes. Tell us why. Obviously, his makeup, all of that is important psychologically. Got to have a big leg. The clutch kicks we saw in college. Can he repeat the same in the NFL? Blah, 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 blah. Okay. At that point, then, if he winds up being your kicker for the entire season and he does a halfway decent job, you could say, hey, you know what? Braden Mann, who we're going to get to in a few seconds, is in year 2 as a punter. We've got a kicker who did a pretty good job in year 1. We don't have to worry now about any high, and I'm going to say high price kickers because free agent, we had ours, remember? And I don't want to go down that hole, the whole Myers deal, but whether you overprice by a million or two in kickers, every team in the salary cap, they're going to have to, are we at the point with our franchise that we want to spend X amount of dollars on a place kicker? Is that one of the final pieces of the puzzle to try to win a championship? And that's not where the Jets are right now. So what they're in, I believe, is, hey, see if we can find something here with Nagar. Let's see if we can find something, with Mike White and James Morgan. Let's see if we can find something with all these young corners. That's what this year is about. And we're going to believe in our coaching staff. We're going to believe in our scouting, and we're going to do it that way. And then hopefully it all works out. But if there is an issue, especially here at place kicker, you move on and you try to find someone else. Maybe it becomes a disaster. Who knows? Okay. But I don't think it's going to be one of those situations where they're going to be worrying that, oh no, we ended up with 5 wins instead of 8 wins because we picked the wrong place kicker. They're not going to care about that just yet. That's something to worry about when you're trying to compete for a playoff spot in a World's Championship. So good luck to Chris Nagar. I definitely like the fact that we're starting from scratch here. I really do. It's and I hope Braden Mann, as we turn our attention to punting next, is also going to be somebody that we can count on after a kind of lackluster first year as one of, if not the top punting prospect in the 2020 draft. So we'll find out what Mann has for year 2, and Brandt Boyer, go back to that press conference from a couple of months ago, and he is going to basically, he was asked, what does Braden Mann have to do to improve his game?
I think I'm not going to get into big expectations, but I'm going to say I have some pretty good expectations for Braden. I think he's improving every day. He's a worker. He does this. He's a hell of a kid. He's one of my favorite kids here, that he just does everything you ask him to do. Any little thing that you want to coach him on. We're working a bunch with his directional kicks and his ability to open up his front, his front first step. And I think that's helping him keep his hips there. And I think it'll help his directional kicking and his hang times and everything like that. And in practice, he's looked really good so far.
And don't forget, Mann was the holder for field goals last season. And that's an important job. You got to develop chemistry with your place kicker. It's not something that you want to screw around with. So Mann was the holder, and he also was the part-time kickoff specialist. So he didn't have as many kickoffs as Ficken did, but his average was better than Ficken. But that'll also be something to keep an eye on, who's going to be kicking off, and how does that work into Chris Nagar's responsibilities. In the kick return department, Boyer has a ton of talented kids to choose from, including rookies Elijah Moore and Michael Carter. Matter of fact, both Michael Carters could factor in. The corner, Michael Carter II, actually somebody to keep an eye on because he's had some kickoff return experience. He ran a 4.3 40 at the combine. And then another rookie, cornerback, Isaiah Dunn, didn't handle kickoff return responsibilities much at Oregon State, if at all, but he did have a lot of experience in high school. And just because they didn't do it in college doesn't mean they won't get a little bit of a crack at it in the pros, especially when you're taking a look at these guys like Michael Carter, running back, and Elijah Moore, receiver, who didn't have a lot of experience, if at all, in college. Now, also, you have the veteran wide receiver Vincent Smith. He was the Jets' top kick returner in 2019. And remember, we were talking when we went over the receivers, this was going to be important for Vincent Smith. It's a crowded receiver room now, and if Vincent Smith makes the Jets, I think he's going to have to win the kick return job. So we'll see about that. And Matt Cole is somebody to keep an eye on. Another guy, a wide receiver we talked about, very fast, runs, what does he run? He runs 4.4. And then there's Ty Johnson. We talked about Ty Johnson when we went over the running backs. I think he had 5 kick returns last year, which was like 4th on the Jets. And I was very surprised about that. So why isn't Ty Johnson as fast as he is, we heard the whole 4-2 stuff with Ty Johnson. Why isn't that? He had 2 kick return touchdowns in college against Michigan and Ohio State. Come on. The guy's got 4.2 speed, and you don't have, and Ty Johnson is not there getting more than a handful of kick returns. So I want to see Ty Johnson get the opportunity, get his ball in his hand, and see what can happen there as well. And then you have the speedy Josh Malone, who, as I mentioned during the wide receiver episode, I just think he is a major long shot. And maybe the only way he makes the team, sort of like Vincent Smith, is if he is the number 1 kick returner. So I'm not really going to hold out hope for Josh Malone making the team, but we'll see if he gets a legitimate chance in the kick return game. Corey Valentine, I talked a little bit about him in the last episode with the secondary. Told you I didn't think he had a chance at all to make the team because, yes, he played a little bit in the secondary, but he's not a part of the secondary. And he's a one, and the way the secondary and how deep it is, you're for him, there's just no way. He would be a one position guy. And once again, the Jets are not a playoff team. That's not the way they're looking at this season. They're not going to have a guy on this team that can only do one thing. I do not see that happening. So I think Corey Ballantyne, who actually had one of his better averages with the Jets in about 12 kicks or something like that, he had last year. It's just a long shot. It's a long shot for Corey Ballantyne. I just don't see it's going to happen. And then the punt returner, that's an easy one. We know that's Braxton Berrios. I can't see that he's going to be dethroned from that spot. I think he's a lock to make the team as number 5, 6 receiver / number 1 punt returner, and maybe number 2 or 3 kick returner. And then you have Keelan Cole to wrap it up. Keelan Cole, who was Jacksonville's top punt returner last year, and he had never been, he had never been a punt returner in his career before, and he wound up with 9 returns. He returned 1 of them for a touchdown, 91 yards. It was against the Packers, I believe. And it was the longest punt return touchdown in the NFL last season. So not bad for a veteran, Keelan Cole. So, maybe he's the backup punt returner, maybe. I don't think the Jets are going to go, okay, it's Keelan Cole or Braxton Berrios, because they can both play in the slot. They both can punt return. I don't think that's going to happen. But, you never know. Again, it's a new coaching staff. So anything's possible. We'll keep an eye on it. All right, now we get to talk about the coverage units on special teams for the Jets as they replace 9 of their top 15 special teamers on coverage when it comes to snaps in 2020. And I think that's a really good thing, not only considering how bad the team was last year, but how bad special teams was last year. So Brandt Boyer, once again, let's go back to him. He talks about all the changes and as well as the key additions, including Justin Hardy.
I was ecstatic on that one. I have to be honest with you. We played, I think, 13 different gunners last year, so it was a real struggle. And he's been fantastic. And what he's done is he's taken over a leadership role in the room, and that's what I think the biggest thing we needed in our room. Especially losing, our a bunch of our core guys and things like that with the new roster and things like that. So, he's done a great job. I expect big things out of him. Now we just need, somebody to merge at that other gunner and so they can't double him every time and things like that. And we'll see what happens, which I fully expect somebody will do. I think a lot is in terms of the roster, right? Because Luvu and all those guys are gone, right? Farley and my whole group, Basham and all those guys are gone now. So, schematically, it doesn't change much for me. I may tweak some things and stuff like that, but I have smaller, faster, longer linebackers than possibly before, right? So it's going to be a little difference. And I think that some things are a big plus right now, and that some things, we've got a lot to work on, because of that change. But I think eventually, once we start getting going and we start accelerating the process and they get the more reps and and they can't get enough reps, the young kids that are in here now and the guys that haven't been here, and they're doing a really nice job so far. I think that they're slowly coming along, and that's what they should. If they can just get a little better every day, and which is what we're trying to do. And I think that we'll be fine when the time comes to put the pads on for real.
All right, now we're going to wrap up special teams with 3 key players to watch. And those players are going to be Noah Dawkins. Remember, we talked about Dawkins on the linebacker show, and I said, all right, I don't know. We're going to talk about some of these players later on. I said that about Valentine with the secondary show. Same thing with Dawkins. And that's why, because Dawkins is really not going to play linebacker if he makes this team. Maybe he'll get out there for 50 snaps of the season, but he's going to be here because he wins the job as a special teams guy. And he would have to be a very key special teams player. He ran a 4.41, so that is very fast. So he's got the speed that you're looking for. Matter of fact, he was that fast that at the combine, that would have been, I think that was second fastest for all edge rushers / outside linebackers. Actually, I think it would have led his group at the combine when he came out. He was signed by the Jets in, I think it was, early 2020. And he ended up playing all 5 games and 51 snaps on special teams. Then you have also Sherrod Nissman. And Nissman, I mentioned him a little bit as well. Nissman played 57 games with Atlanta over 5 years. And if there's a player that has the experience, the veteran, I can play defense better, or I can actually fit, just defense. I can actually fit on your defense, play a couple of 100 snaps, and be a really good special teams player. This is the guy. And that's the reason I believe he's here. Remember, we were talking about this yesterday, and I was saying, okay, if we're going to try to find those extra couple of spots, and I was talking with the last 2, and I'm going to get to Hassel in just a second. There's those 2. It was Nissman and Hassel. I think it's going to be either or, and I gave a little bit of an edge to Nissman because of the fact that he's got all that experience with Atlanta. He actually has, I believe, 1,020 career snaps on special teams. That is a lot of experience. It's a lot more than anybody else here has on the Jets. That is going to be important. And then, of course, he also has 80 career tackles in 5 years, over 57 games with Atlanta, making a couple of starts. So nobody else has that kind of experience on the Jets right now. That's why I gave him an edge to make this team. Hassel, and I believe Hassel had a block punt last year. I think it was in that Ram game. I think Hassel was the one that came down with it. He played just in 3 games with the Jets, all on special teams. I just don't see Hassel and Nissman making the team. Doesn't mean Nissman's going to definitely make it. They may look at Hassel and go, hey, he's younger. We're going to mold him better. We think he could be just as good, if not better than Nissman by the time he gets to Nissman's age. So we're going to go with Hassel. Could happen. Happens all the time. Then remember I told you about Matt Cole. Not only was he a really good punt returner in college, he was excellent in the coverage units as well. So you have Matt Cole to keep an eye on. You have rookie Brandon White. We talked about him with the linebackers. Remember we went over the hybrids, and White was that third guy, rookie, wasn't the drafted one, was the defensive MVP of the Rose Bowl, but he's more of a guy that you just cannot expose him in coverage. You got to put him at the line of scrimmage. He's going to be that kind of guy. But more importantly, if he's going to make the team, he's got to make the team on special teams. He's got special teams experience in college, and he's only going to have a chance to make the special teams if he makes it at all, if he's going to make this roster, and he has no other chance. Okay. And by the way, a player that very well could end up on the practice squad, not a protected practice squad guy either. When we are looking over the final roster for how you're going to fit in these guys, and we talked a little bit about that on yesterday's episode 9 with the DBs. Justin Hardy is the lock. Okay, so we're going to go over the spots. How many are you going to keep? Well, who the heck knows, right? But we know Justin Hardy, who is not going to play a lot on defense. Maybe he'll get 100 snaps, but he is the number 1 gunner on the team. That's the lock. After that, you have the battles. Let's see, where do we have it here? You have the battles with 7 other players, 6 in coverage: Nissman, Hassel, White, Matt Cole, Zane Lewis, and Dawkins. We talked about Zane Lewis on yesterday's show. And then Valentine is the only guy out there that's more or less special teams only, but the kick returner. The other guys are in coverage. Remember, there's going to be a larger practice squad again this year, which I think is great. So you're going to have an opportunity to keep a lot of these guys. Again, only 4 will be protected, but you're going to be able to keep some of these guys on your practice squad, and you're going to be able to protect some of them as well. We're going to kind of wrap it up here in totality. Just want to thank anybody who has continued to watch each of these episodes and followed all the way through to the end here. Because out of the limited amount of people who have been tuning in and then listening and holding on until the very end, that number decreases even more. But we just want to thank everybody who has stuck through. A lot of hard work putting these in. I am actually glad it's over because we have so much work to do with 31 other NFL teams and college football. We're starting our Dynasty Fantasy Football League with RotoWire. That's going to be so much fun. We're going to talk a lot about that on the channel. So there's just a lot of work to be done. That does not mean that the Jet talk is going away. Matter of fact, sometime probably this upcoming week, we'll have a training camp update with Jan Levine where I'll have an opportunity to kind of just talk. And Jan and I can and I can actually have somebody to talk with, and we can kind of banter around what's going on with the Jets, and that'll be a lot of fun. The report, 10-episode report, it's just been more professional than anything. I haven't been, a total wise ass as I am prone to be on the other shows. So I thought it was just important to kind of do this as professionally as I could. And since it's a lot of hard work, you don't have time to jerk around. So you got to kind of, edit the thing properly, get the information in, write your script, cut it all together, and then move on to the next episode. So I'm just glad it's all over and out of the way. It's still early enough during training camp that there's still a lot going on. We're going to update you guys and everything going on with the Jets as often as we can. And then we start getting into weekly Jet shows. Probably have a couple a week starting in probably late August to early September. And then our other shows, by the way, are starting the first week of August. Not only will we do a Jet show this week, but we'll also have Ryan Dunleavy back to talk NFL. We'll have the fantasy football show I talked about. And then I'm working on finalizing how we're going to produce and put together our college football content as well. So anyway, that'll wrap it up for Jets FM's 2021 Jets preview, episode 10, special teams. And then when we talk this week, and then we'll probably hold off as usual to the last episode of the preseason before giving final predictions. But I'll kind of talk a little bit about that as well this week. The bottom line is, just because so you don't have to wait. And I think I've kind of given you a glimpse of what I felt regarding the coaching staff and the talent, and Joe Douglas and all that. Yes, I'm and again, I said this once Joe Douglas is on board. I'm completely bought in. You can see why I'm bought in. I was bought in before Robert Saleh was hired. Now Robert Saleh's hired. That's just stamp of approval is right there for everything I believed in with Joe Douglas. Then Zach Wilson's here. Let's see how he plays first, okay? I'm all in on that. But yes, obviously you get excited about what you see so far. And I believe the kid is going to come through. I think Joe Douglas is going to come through. I think the coaching staff is going to come through. And I 100% believe that this is our time. I said this a few months back. I think we even have a clip of it still up there on the channel, that I still believe even more so that this is our time as Jet fans. Not saying we're going to win 5 straight Super Bowls. All I'm saying is that if you think about an era, a 10-year era, 10 to 12, 15 year of, let's say you live 70 years of being a football fan, and you're on your deathbed, and you think back at what was the best era as a Jet fan, not winning Super Bowl III, Not that 1 year there or here. Era, 15 years. Okay. What was it? It's going to be now. There's no doubt in my mind about that. It starts now. It's going to start in the 2021 season till at least 2030. Can't even believe I'm saying that number. Maybe 2035. Oh, so but that's going to be our era, and that means winning multiple Super Bowls, more than one. Okay, I'm not going to get into like Tom Brady numbers, but multiple Super Bowls, 10 or 15 years of building one of the best teams, one of the best franchises in football. And when you are on your deathbed, whenever it is, could be 20 years, could be 50 years, you are going to look back and you're going to be able to check this tape out too. You're going to look back and you're going to go, damn, Greg was right. Back in 2021, that's when it all began. That's when we had the greatest winning era in New York Jets football history. And it doesn't mean everything's going to go well. It doesn't mean that we're going to kiss ass every time to kiss ass, even if things are going bad. But what it does mean is perspective. And I'm going to continue to give perspective. And if things go bad, and I think that all it is just a bad day, it's a bad game, it's something that is correctable. I still believe 100% in what we're doing here. I'm not gonna be like these guys on TV and trashing the Jets and same old Jets. I will make them accountable like I always have. Okay? Because I know they're not bought in like I am. I know it. I know that majority of those, especially in the media, or the ones that are really big on social media, those are the doubting Jet fans. The ones that think it's funny that they're a Jet fan because of all the losing. Those guys, you know who I'm talking about. All right? Whatever. Those guys will eventually buy in. And then when they do, then they're going to act like they're the greatest Jet fan ever. But there's nothing wrong, and there isn't anything wrong with being critical about your team. I've never said that. But it's also important to have perspective and to be able to say, because I even hear, there's some people who are still, Jet ownership, and especially with everything that's going on here with Zach Wilson recently. And then remember, we talked about this with Zach May in yesterday's episode. So you're going to hear a lot of this stuff. It's still going to happen. It's going to be the same old Jet stuff. Those people, okay, they didn't buy in. You can't buy in when the team has already reached a point of success. You can't go, I was bought in all the time. No, you weren't. Now, you can gladly say I was wrong. I shouldn't have doubted them. Took me a while, but now I'm in. All right, cool. Shake your hand, move on. But there are going to be a lot of guys out there and girls, but mostly guys, Jet fans, who are going to just continue the whole woe is me nonsense, because the Jets are not going to go undefeated this year, and they're not, more than likely, not saying it ain't going to happen, but more than likely they won't win more than they lose this year. So there are going to be losses this year as usual. Remember, the Jets had won a decent amount of games a couple of years ago. And everybody's going to think the Adam Gase era was like 2-32 or whatever. No, it wasn't. They had one terrible year. Year before that wasn't terrible, record-wise. So I can see there's going to be, if this team goes 8-8 this year, I can see there's going to be an awful lot of criticism. There'll be a lot of positive things, but there'll be a lot of criticism. And there's nothing wrong with criticizing, but again, you've got to have perspective when you criticize. It can't be criticizing for the sake of criticizing, and it can't be criticizing about same old Jets. I don't want to hear, if you want to go ahead and go down that road, you go down that road. That means you are not a believer. Okay, you have not bought in to what Joe Douglas and the Johnsons are doing and Robert Saleh is doing. You have not bought in. And what I'm trying to say here as I close out here, I already have. I've bought in since the day Joe Douglas was hired. And all I continue to be is bought in after Robert Saleh was hired. I am all in, and we're going to go from there. And we're going to enjoy this ride. Whether there's wins or losses, we are going to enjoy this ride because I know what is on the horizon. A lot of winning, a lot of enjoyment in playoff games, and then eventually another Super Bowl championship. Whether it comes in 2 years or 3 years or 4 years, it's coming. And there isn't a doubt in my mind about that. And I can't wait till it happens. It's going to be a lot of fun. We'll see you next time. I'm Greg DePalma, Jets FM on the OFN.